dealt a bad hand with Dan Snyder. He had to deal with all the name change stuff and all the sexual harassment stuff, his cancer off the field. Is there one?
There could be one outlier.
I don't know if there's even one.
There might be one. I'd be shocked.
Okay, if there's one, there's only one.
I'd be shocked if that one person
And
called.
I'm not talking about Mrs. Rivera.
Right. It's not related.
I'm just talking about a fan who loves this team and watches them every week. Is there one fan who would like to see him back, or 100% of the fan base for a new coaching staff?
I mean, he's just the poster child for mediocrity. His current head coaching record from his time in Carolina and in Washington is 102 wins, 102 losses, and 2 ties.
But less than mediocrity or less than mediocre here.
Oh, here, if they lose to the Cowboys, which they're a 13.5-point underdog at this point, his tenure will end at 26, 40, and 1 tie.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, it's going to be either right at 40% or a shade under.
With one playoff appearance, and that was in a year that was kind of fluky because it was COVID year.
Right.
And Dak Prescott got hurt earlier in that season. They won the division at 7-9.
I mean, he's been coaching for 13 seasons in Carolina and Washington, 3 double-digit win seasons in those 13. I mean, he's shown, at least since he's been here in Washington, that he's poor at drafting talent. He's poor at developing talent. He's also substandard in going out on the free agent market and bringing in talent that works for his system that helps him win games.
You can argue that in the last 25 years, out of all the coaches that have spent more than 2 years here,
right.
Now Zorn was only here 2 years, bad deal.
Yep.
Spurrier was only here 2 years, bad deal. But all these other coaches that were here for like the majority of their contract, Gibbs, Shanny, Gruden, Rivera, he's been the worst because at least some of those coaches or all of those coaches had winning seasons. Gruden had 2 winning seasons back to back. Shanahan wasn't great, but he went 10-6, got to the playoffs with RG3 in that rookie year. Gibbs went to the playoffs twice. Gibbs 2. So North Turner, even though that was before Snyder, but North Turner had winning seasons back to back. So you could argue this has been the worst tenure outside of the Zorn failure and Spurrier.
And his failures here have been headlined by just complete and utter inability to solve the quarterback spot.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get it right no matter what, whether it was bypassing Tua and Justin Herbert to select Chase Young at number 2. That was a whiff. Bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, an older guy that he thought could, provide a spark to the offense. He got banged up. Didn't even last into the first half of his first performance. They were kind of forced into making a move. They had to trade for Carson Wentz because, let's be honest, no other quarterback that was a free agent or that had other more attractive destinations would have picked coming to Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, Carson Wentz was basically forced to come here because he was traded here. He had no control over where he wound up.
Yeah.
So he thought that would be a move that would help the offense, and Carson Wentz floundered. Like Valdez brought up earlier, his best quarterback move was signing Taylor Heineke as his COVID quarterback.
His best personnel move might be Taylor Heineke.
You're probably right. Some might argue, okay, they found Cam Curl late in the draft. They drafted him in the 7th round.
Yeah.
He's a really promising player, but let's be honest, safety's not as important as quarterback.
I'm saying you can make the argument Taylor's the best move.
Yeah. Or based on what you said yesterday, drafting Sam Cosmi.
Sam Cosmi.
Who apparently was, what did you say he was? He was the best player.
Unless I was getting onioned by like a site that looked like PFF.
Yeah. The Sam Cosmi fan club site.
Yeah, it very well could be. Like he was.
And I question it, but it was out there.
He's been rated the best offensive player in the league. I believe it was since week 11 of this season.
Right.
Not best offensive lineman, the best offensive player.
Right. Better than CeeDee Lamb.
Somehow
and McCaffrey.
Somehow better than those guys.
I kind of question it, but
right.
Yeah, I mean it's been a failure. Nice guy.
Super nice
Look,
guy.
we like Ron as a person.
Yes.
He was good when he was on our show. Good dude. All right. But he just was not a good coach.
Let's go out to the Windy City. Talk to Mark Must be listening on the Odyssey app in Chicago. What's up, Mark? Thanks for calling.
Morning, boys. I'm trying to help you kill some time on a two-person show.
We appreciate that.
I've been listening to you guys for over a decade. I lived out there for a period of time and then kept listening when I moved to Chicago. I'm not a Ron Rivera apologist, but he's not a bad coach. He's a terrible GM. That's his issue. This is a player personnel problem. He's got maybe 5 guys that would start on a 500 team in the NFL. Maybe. So the good news is this is imminently fixable. You've got the number 2, number 3 draft. You trade away from that. Quarterback doesn't matter. Sam Howell may or may not be the guy, right? Who knows? Nobody knows because he doesn't have anybody surrounding him.
Well, hold on. You can't say quarterback doesn't matter.
I say it doesn't matter to Commanders this year. It's neutral. You're completely neutral.
Okay, but it does matter for the future. So you have to figure out who do you want at that position. It's the most important position.
100%. I agree with you, Bishop, 100%. But hear me out.
All right.
If you got Caleb Williams or you got May, you don't know if they'll do well here because they don't have anybody surrounding them. So here's what you do. This is a draft and a free agency. 75% I'm waiting the draft and 25% free agency. I go through my total evaluation of all the players, and then I overlay 3 things. I overlay volatility in the position. Quarterback, huge volatility. It's not something that you want to play with this year. You may get some good players, and you find out that you've got the quarterback you need, right? You trade out of this position, you get 3 in the top 30. That's what the draft capital board would say. If you trade out of the number 2 or number 3 pick, you could get 3 picks in the top 30. You go out and you pick somebody that's got low volatility, high character, because you're going to lose for another year or 2. And then you get positions that you think you probably need. You probably don't need a wide receiver. You need offensive linemen. You need some D-backs. I'd start with safeties because of the lower volatility. And then do that for 2 years because you're going to stink next year too. It's just you just don't have the players. 2 years from now, you're going to have a solid 15 people on this team. You're still not going to have 22 solid, but you'll have solid 15 people. And then you're going to have so much free agency money. Spend the free agency money on proven performers at quarterback with character that have to get out of a situation because of money or because it's a Fields type of thing. There will be a Fields 2 years from now. Get him. And then you're going to have a team that can compete for the playoffs year in, year out because you're going to have 3 good offensive linemen. You're going to have a good strong safety. You're going to have a good lockdown cornerback. And you got to build. You can't go after a quarterback this year because if Caleb doesn't work because he's not as good as you think, or because he doesn't have an offensive lineman, or he doesn't have a receiver that can create space, it doesn't matter if he's the best quarterback. He won't be the best quarterback for you.
All right, Mark. We have more calls coming in. Thank you for the call from Chicago. We appreciate it.
And some people do agree with that.
I don't agree with that because of this. Here's where I push back immediately on his, they're not going to be good for 3 years. Nobody thought the Colts would be any good. They drafted Anthony Richardson. He got knocked out in the first month of the season, and they're playing for a playoff bid this weekend with Gardner Minshew at quarterback.
And the team they're playing is in the playoffs if they
Same
win.
with C.J. Stroud because they hit on their quarterback, and they're in immediate playoff contention.
Yeah.
So I don't fully buy into this. It's got to be a 2 or 3 year fix. Like you can get it. That's what Ron was always trying to pitch to everybody. Well, how do you expect me to turn this around in 1 or 2 years? It's a 4 year thing. What are you talking about? You've had 4 years and we're back to having the number 2 pick overall in the draft.
Yeah.
You haven't fixed anything.
The way I would say is, look, you still, even if you don't trade out of the number 2 pick, you still have other draft picks. Okay.
Correct.
You still have money to spend in free agency. You can do all of those moves this year, and you don't have to gather 3 or 4 or 5 extra picks to do it.
Right.
And here's the deal: there's no guarantee that what other quarterback you draft is going to be a stud. But I think you have to take that chance because if you don't take a quarterback and one of those guys, if not both, go to other teams and end up being really good.
Right.
Well, that backs you up another 5 to 7 years.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just guarantee you're going to get a quarterback as good as these guys in 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
You just have no idea.
That is correct.